We have Nicole in the house. We are going to be talking about, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about sales today. I am so excited because this is the issue. This is the issue that so many individuals, every person that I get on the phone with, hey, how can I help you? How can I help you? How can I help you? I need more sales. I need more sales. I need more sales. So we are talking about sales today. This is going to be so much fun. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Sabrina Victoria. I am the host here at her talk show. Listen, if you have not already subscribed for this podcast, I don't know what you're waiting for. Hit that subscribe button. These podcasts are guaranteed to have you thinking differently, not just about life, but also about business. Let's jump right in.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
Hello, if you're listening live, welcome. And if you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can send you some love in the comments. We have had over 600 women grace this stage. We are adding another one to the list today, Coach Nicole. Sales and conversation. Coach Nicole Cramer is known for merging a human connection with sales strategy as an exactly what to say certified guide. She's passionate about enhancing women's business acumen. Transitioning from a successful 7-year corporate career, she now supports entrepreneurs and businesses in honing genuine sales conversations. I love that. Transforming connection into art. This is the thing. We're like totally pivoting into conversations over like sales strategy.
Yep. Because
some people aren't getting it though.
Connection is where it's at.
Yeah, some people are getting it. I get pitched. I get on the sales calls sometimes just to hear the pitch. And I'm like, this is very pitchy.
You can see right through it. And that's the way we all used to do sales. Not we necessarily, but that's the way traditionally it was done for a very long time. And it's really shifting in a major way because people are craving connection. They're really craving that human touch, especially in the world we live in now where everything is automated. Everywhere you turn around, you've got a text or an email or something from a bot.
Yeah.
Right? We're constantly being communicated to by bots. And so human connection is something that people really crave and really want. And that's what makes all the difference.
Yeah, I like that you're opening up with this because quite honestly, and I think this is the kind of the divide between possibly what you're talking about and like this bot system where you don't have to talk to anybody is this sales, these constant sales and marketing ads that I see about never having to talk to anybody to close a sale because we're so afraid to sell. So we're buying into these programs where you just like close in the DMs and you never need to talk to anybody, which is just so interesting,
right?
Whether it works or not,
right?
But so interesting. And you're going down a different route here.
Well, what are you, depending on what you do and what you're selling, I work with a lot of people who they're coaches, they work in some capacity where what they're selling is a service. Right. And so they are going to have a lot more interaction with that person ongoing throughout the length of the container or whatever it is that they've sold. Why would you not want to have a real conversation with that person before they've entered into that? Why would you? Because here's the thing, by the way, that first conversation where you're selling is not going to be the last time you're selling. We're always selling something. We're always looking to influence and impact somebody. Even once they've said, hey, I want to work with you. Here's my credit card. And the transaction happened. You don't think you're going to be selling that person throughout the entire container that you're working with them? Right? We're always looking to influence and impact. And if you're coaching somebody, especially, you're constantly selling. You're constantly helping them make different decisions and move themselves in a different direction. Because if you're not there to help them with that, then what are you there to help them do if they're staying in the same place? So to me, it's like, how could you, in an intimate container like that, especially, how could you not want to have a real conversation with that person before you're going to do that kind of work with them?
Yes, 100%. And this is how you're making sure that the person that you end up working with, you actually appreciate. Because sometimes there's a disconnect.
And the thing appreciate you. I mean, there needs to be that mutual, like this is, it's a relationship.
Yeah.
Let's make sure it gets off on the right foot by making sure you're both the right fit for one another. And again, I think automation is great. I think there's a time and a place for being able to help people make decisions without needing so many, but like at the end of the day, sales is about relationships. Sales is people buy from people.
Yeah, definitely. So I know that you have a certification of sorts that you teach about exactly what to say.
Mm-hmm.
Do we get to hear a hint of this?
Yeah.
Do we get to hear a step of this?
Yeah.
Because we're all wondering. I think this is the, the $1 million question.
Yeah. Yeah. What do I say?
What do
I
I
would
say?
say a lot of times people avoid the conversations that, whether it's a sales conversation or just any critical conversation that's important to your business, your personal life. And the reason that they're avoiding it a lot of times is that they just aren't confident that they know what to say, that they know how to handle themselves. And I think, 99 times out of 100, you're going to feel better once you have that conversation. I mean, even if it doesn't give you the outcome that you wanted, sometimes just leading up to that conversation, the anxiety that you feel is the most challenging piece. But what's really holding you back from having it or moving forward with it a lot of times is, I'm not sure what to say. I'm not sure how to say it. And that fear holds us back. And I think that knowing exactly what to say allows you to approach those really important conversations with a level of competence. And that creates confidence. And when we feel more confident showing up to those conversations, we're able to compose ourselves. We're able to handle those conversations differently, whether it's an actual sales conversation or not. And we're able to create more of the outcomes that we want.
Absolutely. So how does somebody get over the fear? That's like a real thing.
I mean, I think, I learned this years ago when I read a book called Big Magic by Liz Gilbert. And she said, the fear is going to be there no matter what. Just don't let it be in the driver's seat. And I think that's always important to remember, because I don't think that, like, the reason courage exists is because fear exists, right? There's a duality there. Like the reason that we're tired is because we don't have sleep. The reason that we're hungry is because we want food. Like the reason that we have courage is because fear exists. And so the fear isn't going to go away, but how do we show up confidently for those important moments despite the fear? Because those moments have something that means something to us and to the other person that's going to make a big impact and a big difference in our lives, whether it's business or personal or whatever it is. So part of it, I think, is just accepting that the fear it's going to be there. What is your relationship with it? And are you letting it call the shots, or are you the one saying, hey, I know I'm a little afraid. I know that this is something new that I'm doing, or this is a big conversation I'm about to have. How do you still show up fully for that conversation, despite the fact that, there's that edge of fear there?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I think even just that creates a shift or a pivot in someone's mindset. Just that visual of it's there, but it doesn't have to be in the driver's seat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and another way to think about fear is, yes, it's always going to be there. So just don't let it be in the driver's seat. Just kick it in the back, right? You get in the back seat. I'm not afraid in the morning when I brush my teeth, because I've done it a bajillion times. I'm not afraid when I get in the car and drive, because so some of that too, how can we get rid of fear, or how can we make fear not have such a big presence or a big impact on how we show up? Get some reps in, get some practice in, do it. Right. I don't get on a bike and get nervous anymore. But when I was learning how to ride a bike at 5 years old, I was nervous. I'd probably skinned my knees a couple times and fallen down. So how do we get better? How do we become more confident? We do it. We get reps in. And the more you do it, the more confident you're going to feel. So part of that too is just, knowing that, okay, fear is going to be there. How do I feel more confident in showing up despite that? Practice.
Yeah. So how did you know? I mean, was there a time in your world where you were fearful of getting onto a sales call, or have you always been?
I was a high school math teacher for 15 years. I had never sold a thing in my life, or so I thought. And my time with teaching was done. I just didn't, I wanted a new challenge. Right. And after 15 years, I loved what I'd done as a teacher. I loved my students and all the experiences that I'd had, but it was time for me to challenge me. And I'm a very competitive person. I had a lot of friends that were in sales, and it sounded like a game. Every time we'd get together for a happy hour, they'd talk about whatever bonus they had just won, or whatever big contract they had signed, or whatever competition they were in with their sales team. And it sounded like a game to me. And the collegiate athlete in me was like, this is a game and I can play. And when I win money. Like, I'm a hard worker. I put so much into what I do as a teacher. What if I just took that same work ethic and applied it in sales? Like, what could I do? What could I be? What could I create? And at the time I had a boyfriend who was number one in the country in his company. And I just thought that sounded so cool. So the competitor in me was sold on the idea that I wanted to be in sales. And I'd never sold anything and I didn't have any experience. And so my very first sales job interview, I was really nervous because I had no experience. And in order to get a job, you have to have experience, right? So a friend of mine said, I think you should do this. Let me set you up with my boss for an interview. And so I go into that interview and I have a resume, Sabrina, that just says teacher, because that's all I've ever done, right? We get to the end of the interview. And I think the guy just took the interview as a favor to his, his buddy, like, hey, interview my friend. I think she'd be great. Well, he was pleasantly surprised. And he said so at the end. He goes, I got to tell you, you knocked it out of the park. And I'm pleasantly surprised. But I'm going to have a hard time hiring you over the 89 internal people who want this position. You've never sold anything. Your resume just says teacher. It's like the exact thing that I was so afraid that he was going to say. So right in that moment, I'm like, shit. And I said, well, I've been selling math to teenagers for the last 15 years and nobody wanted to buy that. And he goes, oh, you're good. That's good. And in that moment, I didn't have that planned. I had no idea that he was going to say that. I didn't prepare like, oh, here's what I'm going to say. It just came out. And in that moment, what it did is it got me to the next round. Because what he said is, oh, you're good. Will you go on a ride along with one of my guys? I said, absolutely. He said, will you write a 30, 60, 90-day business plan? I said, yeah. So I get out of that interview and I call my friend. I'm like, I think it went really well because I'm going on a ride along. And by the way, what's a 30, 60, 90-day business plan? I have no idea what I just agreed to. And he's like, I'll help you with it. Don't worry. But that moment, yes, it got me on to the next round. I have never forgotten that moment, Sabrina. And now it's what I teach to people all the time because I was selling math, even though there wasn't a transaction. We are all salespeople. We are all in the business of selling something. Anytime you're looking to influence a situation or impact a situation, you want your partner to agree to your family coming over for the holidays. You want your kids to make their bed. You want whatever it is that you want to negotiate a new job, a new role with your boss. We're always selling. And so, no, I didn't come out of the womb knowing how to do this. I didn't come out of the womb going, hey, put me in sales conversations. I know what I was scared shitless when I started that job. So I didn't get that interview. I didn't get that job. But another friend said, you're interviewing for sales positions? I'll hire you right now. And he saw something in me that he thought would be great. I started that job. And like I said, I was scared shitless. I didn't know what to do. I had one goal and it was be number one in the nation. So I start on day one. It was actually 10 years ago this week, January 14th of 2014 was my first day. And I walked in and I said, more or less, I'm here to be number one. Well, let me tell you how that works with a room full of veteran salespeople. When you are the Pollyanna that just left a 15-year teaching career and you're like, I'm here to be number one in the nation. Oh, I got laughed out of the room. Like these are sales veterans that have done it their whole lives. And they're like, oh, that's cute, Pollyanna. Good luck with that. And I was like, well, where there's a will, there's a way. Right. And that was kind of my, like, I didn't know. I often say I was like ignorance on fire. I didn't know why it should be hard, if that makes sense. Totally. And I think when you're just oblivious to the hurdles and the challenges, I just was like, here we go. I'm going to be number one. I'm going to figure it out. And I did. It's not to say that that was a pretty journey. It's not like there weren't tears and frustrations and everything along the way, but I committed to, I'm going to make this happen. I want to find a way to be number one. And so what I did when I became number one is a lot of people were like, okay, well, how'd you do it? How'd you figure this out? And this goes back to your question. Like, did I just, come out knowing how to have these conversations and knowing what to say? I absolutely did not. And when I got to that point and I had the number one title, people were like, how did you do it? And I said, I don't know. Like, I think I just liked people and wanted to help them. I didn't have a better answer than the fact that I wanted to build relationships with people and I wanted to help them solve their problems. And there wasn't, sure, there was strategy, there was activity, there was all kinds of other things. But at the end of the day, and what I sold was coffee, right? And somebody said, you must be a coffee expert. I said, no, I think I'm just a people expert. I think I just learned how to work with people and help them get to what they wanted, that I was able to help them get to, that I was able to help them provide. And, as the story goes, there was this, so one of the guys on that first day that I walked in and said, I want to be number one. He's still a good friend of mine to this day. He made fun of me. He still, would tease and joke. And here we are sitting in the sales office and I'm writing thank you notes, right? So a couple months after I'd started, I would meet with people and I would write thank you notes to everybody that I met with. And we were supposed to be making phone calls. And so this guy, his name's Kevin, he looks at me. He's like, what are you doing? He sits at the desk right next to me. He goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm writing thank you notes to the people I met with last week. And that was my Monday morning. First thing I did, got in on Monday morning, wrote thank you notes. He goes, we're supposed to be making phone calls. I said, well, this is what I'm doing to make these are my calls. Like I'm reaching out to these people through thank you notes. He goes, you're not going to be able to make enough calls. You're going to get in trouble. I said, you do you, I'll do me. Right. So every Monday, religiously, here I am, Monday mornings, writing my thank you notes. They announced me a year and a half later as the number one salesperson in the nation. And he comes up to me. He goes, okay, how'd you do it? I said, what do you mean? He goes, how'd you do it? How'd you get to number one? How'd you make this happen? I said, Kevin, you sit right next to me in the sales office. You've seen everything I've done. It's not a secret. And he goes, are you going to try to tell me those handwritten notes made you number one? I said, are you going to try to tell me they didn't? Now, did the notes themselves make me number one? No, but I know you get it, Sabrina. Like in a bigger way, what I started to connect with is the fact that connection is the answer. Human connection is the answer. And that kind of became my thing is, how can we get more touch points? How can we get more human connection? How can we truly build relationships with people and make it about that? And my company said, hey, you're great at this. Here's your promotion. And I said, I don't want your promotion. I want to do this again. I want to prove to everybody that I'm not a one-hit wonder. I want to prove that what I did actually works. And so that I did it again. I did it a second year in a row. And that's when people start coming to you saying, okay, show me how to do it. Show me what you did. Like, how did you make this happen? And that's where I started to really ask myself, okay, what did I do? Thank you notes were a big part of that. Relationships were what really made it happen. And again, I'm not taking away from the fact that there's activity, there's things that you need to do to support all of that. But really, that was my emphasis. That was my priority. How do I build relationships with these people and help them get what they want that they aren't able to do?
Yeah, you know what I'm really hearing here, and I have the same exact mentality that you're talking about as far as what I call giving, to show up and give, like continuously be in a mindset of how can I give to a person, make them feel good. And then relying on the law of reciprocity to kick in to get, not necessarily even ever having to ask.
Yeah.
And with that, what you're saying and my thought process here, I feel as if individuals have a really hard time trusting that the time and the effort that they're putting into writing notes is going to pay off. So like, how does one, like, obviously after a while you start to see results, right? But before you start to see the results, how did you get into the mindset? How does somebody like commit to something like this? The time, not knowing that there's going to be any payback, any ROI, as they call it.
Such a good question. And I would lie if I told you that I haven't questioned sometimes, like, is me sitting down and doing, because it does take time.
Yeah.
It takes a hell of a lot more time than it does to pick up the phone and say, hey, but a lot of times what's happening when you're picking up the phone, you're leaving a voicemail or you're not getting a hold of somebody. And everybody's picking up the phone. Everybody's writing emails. So in my mind, it was like, here's how I started to really trust it. I'm like, how do I differentiate myself? How do I stand out? It's kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of this, right? Human connection is what it's all about, because everywhere you turn, there's automation that's communicating with you. So how do you cut through that noise? How do you show up as a real human? And that's kind of what I asked myself 10 years ago when I started this job. How do I not be like everybody else? Everybody else is calling. Everybody else is emailing. And I thought, well, and I've always been a handwritten note person. To be honest with you, all those years that I was a teacher, I told you for 15 years, every day at the end of every single day as a teacher, I wrote 5 notes. I had 5 classes every day. I wrote 1 note per student per class, so that by the end of each semester, every student had gotten at least 3 handwritten notes from me by the end of the year. It changed the game in my relationships with those students. They didn't want to do math. Most of them didn't. And I saw how I was able to influence them through the relationship that we built that allowed them to show up and do things that they otherwise wouldn't have really wanted to do or wouldn't have really enjoyed, right? So how do we trust ourselves to do something like writing a thank you note that just feels slow or feels like I can't see, right, that there's an actual return on the investment of my time here? Well, I like to think of it like this. Let's use an analogy. Right now, a lot of us are probably in a different mode at the beginning of the year with our workouts and what we're doing to get ourselves into better health and wellness. I myself am one of them, right? For about 2 months now, I've been going to this new workout that I really love. I look in the mirror and I see the exact same body that I saw 2 months ago, Sabrina.
Mm. Mhm.
But what is different for me? What is different is something that I can't see or touch. It's a feeling.
Mm.
It's how I feel inside. It's how I feel about myself and my self-worth, because I am worth getting up in the morning, taking myself to that class, coming home, going on a walk with my dog, taking care of me. And it's the invisible progress, right? That we can't see. I know I'm making progress, but my body looks the same in the mirror right now as it did 2 months ago. What I also like to think about in terms of an analogy with invisible progress, I actually learned this through from Ed Milet. He told a story once about this. And if you go to a little kids party and there's a piñata there, let's say there's 7 little kids in line wanting to hit the piñata. Well, the first 6 probably the piñata looks the same after they hit it, right? They hit it, nothing happens. They hit it, nothing happens. The 7th kid gets up there and it's this tiny little girl and she takes the stick and she hits it one time and the whole thing explodes. Well, that little tiny girl that went 7th was not the strongest, was not the best, didn't have the best piñata strategy. She didn't just, but there was invisible progress, right? There was chipping away. She didn't have the
Totally.
secret piñata strategy that's like, I know how to break it. And so it's really tough to trust ourselves when
Yeah.
we've chosen a certain way to do something. And to me, it's like, how do I trust the feeling, not the external results? But how do I trust the feeling? And what I would say to somebody, if they're like, well, I don't know if it's worth it to write thank you notes, then it's not.
Mm.
If you're already questioning it, then it's not, because you're probably doing it to try to manipulate a certain outcome. If you're only doing it because of the outcome, don't
Totally.
do it. If
Yeah.
you're doing it because it's a genuine gesture on your end, and to me, like I said, I wanted to differentiate myself. I wanted to stand out. I wanted to make sure that they knew that I cared about them, that I was thinking about them. Did all of my thank you notes turn into deals? No, but that's not why I did them. I did them
Yeah.
because I genuinely wanted to connect with the person. I'm not saying thank you notes are the only way to go. What I'm saying is, where does your joy come from with human connection? Maybe it's a thank you note, maybe it's something else. But are you doing it for the joy of it? Are you doing it for the feeling of it? Or are you doing it because you're like, well, I think this is going to turn into a sale? That feels manipulative to me. That doesn't feel like you're writing a thank you note because of the true essence of why you want to write a thank you note. You're doing it because you're attached to an outcome.
Mm.
And to me, here's the only outcome. There's one outcome that I say this to my clients all the time. I'll say this to everybody. There's one outcome that you're allowed to attach to in any conversation. Serving.
Mm.
Helping. You get one outcome. You can't control whether somebody says yes or no. You can't control what somebody's decision is going to be. What you can control is, am I showing up to be of service in this conversation one way or another? Because, by the way, getting somebody to a no is of service. Getting somebody to a yes is of service. When we can help someone make a decision, when we can leave somebody better off than they were when we started the conversation, then we have been of service. If you focus on that outcome, then trust that everything will fall into place the way that it's meant to. But I think too many people are attached to the outcome and they're making it black and white, right or wrong, client or no client. And they're like, oh, I've got to say the right thing so this turns into a client. How the fuck do you know if you want them to be a client until you've taken the time to stay curious, to ask questions, to find out if there's a need, to find out if you're the right fit for them, if they're the right fit for you? Why are you so attached to them becoming a client if you don't even know for sure yet that you want them as a client or that they want to work with you.
Mm.
That's the point of the conversation. And if you're stepping into it for any other reason, then to me, you're attached to outcomes and you're not really there to serve the person.
Exactly. Exactly. I really like how you're breaking this down. And the reason I'm really appreciating this is because I have a hard time in my community talking about giving and how giving can get you something because it seems inauthentic, right? Like if you're having a conversation about how important it is to give in order to get, that in itself seems like it's friction.
Yeah.
Right? Because then like if you're just giving to get,
It's
then is that
contrived,
really
right?
genuine giving? Yeah.
Right,
And I
right.
remember distinctly hearing a podcast with Gary Vaynerchuk. One of the first books that he wrote was
Crush it.
yes, yeah, one of the first books was jab, 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 right hook,
Give,
which
give,
is
give,
give,
ask.
give, yeah, ask. And I remember like the conversation with somebody that he was having sort of in an argument style, but not really, of the same exact concept as far as, so you're just giving to get. And it kind of stuck with me. It's like, yes. And so I really like how how you said distinctively, like if you're already not wanting to write the note, then just don't write the note. Like if it doesn't reside in you as an actual give of something that you actually want to do,
Correct.
then just don't do it.
Correct.
It has to yes, it is a tactic, but it's coming from a different place. And it's such a weird thing to like speak about authentically and then still get the person listening to understand that you are doing it authentically.
Yeah.
So I like how you're breaking this down. I think that that was absolutely beautiful and definitely no, like there wasn't any feelings that I had as far as it being a tactic.
Yeah.
It's like, it's for real.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I tell people. I will tell you the story all the live long day of my thank you note story, but that doesn't mean I'm promoting go write thank you notes. That's
Yeah.
actually the exact opposite. I'm telling you that because it was true for me. It was genuine for me. And that's why I tell the backstory. If you ask anybody who's known me my whole life, they will tell you thank you, not just thank you notes, but handwritten notes have always been my thing. I am known for you're randomly going to get a note from me in the mail that I just said, hey, I'm thinking of you, blah, 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 whatever. People have always gotten those from me. So it's always been a part of who I am, how I show love, how I show people that I care about them. So it wasn't like contrived, let me see how I can. It was more like, I like that person and I'd rather send them a thank you note than an email to say, and you know, I would put like a little Starbucks gift card in there or something to just give them a token of my appreciation as well. And I love that you brought up the give, 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 ask. I teach that all the time. It's one of the things I learned from Gary Vee. I love him and I love what he's all about. And that is a great formula. But again, let's not make it a formula just for the formula. Like give, 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 ask 75% of the time you're giving so that you can ask. Well, let's not just give so that we can ask.
Yeah.
But it makes the ask so much easier. If you've given, right? And you've shared value and you've, you know, I love the impression of increase from the book, The Science of Getting Rich. I don't know if you've ever read it, but it's basically leave everybody better off than they were when you first, right? Like the impression of increase, like how are you showing up? How are you making someone's lives better? How are you making an impact that's making them more of who they are? And to me, the ask is a blessing because here's the thing. A lot of people get in their head about, I don't want to ask because what? Because what you're asking is going to hurt the other person? Because what you're asking is just all about you? Because by the way, if it's in any way malicious or if it's any way just for your agenda, don't fucking ask. Then you're asking for the wrong reason again. The ask is a blessing. It's a double blessing. If it's the right fit, if it's the right time. And the only way that you know that it's the right fit and the right time is if you've stayed curious long enough to show that person that you care and to gather context and an understanding of why they might need the thing that you're going to ask.
Yeah.
And that curiosity leads to empathy, relatability, understanding the other person's position. And once you've stayed curious and you've asked questions and you've gotten to know them and you've become relatable and you can say, hey, I know you, I get you, I've been you. Wouldn't it be so wrong not to ask? Because once you've identified a need, once you've identified that that person does want support in a certain area, if you're not asking them, it's like somebody talking to you saying, I have a really bad headache. And you know exactly what they need to do to help themselves get rid of that headache. And you're like, oh, that sucks. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like the ask is not about us. And the ask, and we also, the reason that we feel uncomfortable with it is we get attached to the outcome, right? I want this person to say yes. I want them to be a client. This is about me. Well, why is the ask about you? Aren't you here to genuinely help the other person with something that they haven't been able to do on their own, or that they need some support with making happen through what you are able to help them with? And yeah, give, ask, but make sure that you understand the ask is not about you. So even when you are giving so that you can ask, it's not just to benefit you. It's a double blessing when you've given somebody the opportunity to step into a new version of themselves that they really desire to step into, but they've been having trouble making the decision, having trouble figuring out how to do it on their own. And you're saying, hey, come with me. If this is something you want support with, that's what I'm here to help you do.
Yeah. I like this don't be attached to the outcome thing. And for me, in my life, I was always more attached to what the outcome was going to be if my pipeline was small.
Yep. 100%.
So then that's on us. Like, you know, one of the things that I've really come into over the past probably 3 years is growing my network.
Yes.
So there's always such a plethora of individuals in my pipeline that I really am not attached to the outcome. You know, I give. I know that it'll come back in spurts because of the pipeline that I'm working with. And that's, I think, the key sometimes is we're so sporadic with our networking and with the people, and we're so scared all the time to talk to strangers about what we do that we're counting on 2 people to buy our product.
Yep.
And all the pressures. Yeah. And that's not even fair, because then all the pressure for you to pay your bills is on that person. Rude.
Your money doesn't come from people, it comes through people. And for you to assume on any given day that one person you're in, like, I see that happen all the time, especially with new people and new business owners who haven't understood the concept of a pipeline, who don't yet know, maybe because they've never stepped into, they don't have a business acumen, right? They haven't stepped into the arena of how do I make sales? How do I get into conversations that make people want to be my client? Well, you better build your pipeline. You better grow your network, because if you've got a limited number of opportunities, then you are going to get really wonky and really weird about those opportunities, because you're going to feel like they have to go the right way for you to get the outcomes that you want. But if you've got 100 opportunities, 100 different conversations that you're in, then you can very easily show up to any of those conversations and not be attached. And guess what that happens? Or guess what that creates? That creates a lack of neediness in you, which actually makes people want to step closer to you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which actually makes people, like, if you're so available, if you're so needy, if you're so, I've got to make this happen, that's an energy that people can feel.
Yeah.
Right? If we were to look at this in the dating world, I mean, it's like, I'm not saying that you need to be dating a bunch of people at all times, but if you are literally hoping that one thing is going to work out, and you're giving all your time and all your availability and all your energy to that person, they're going to be like, I'm good. Right? And that's the same thing. Sales and dating are basically the same freaking thing. Yeah. And so how can we show up and create such a pipeline? And for people who don't know what a pipeline is, because listen, when I was new to sales, I told you, I was 15 years a high school math teacher. I spent probably my first 3 or 4 months in that sales office that I told you about, having no clue what a pipeline. People were talking about it all the live long day. And finally, I just raised my hand. I said, this is going to sound really dumb, because I know you guys talk about it a lot, but like, do I need to go to Home Depot and get a pipe, or what are we talking about? Like, what is a pipeline? And I felt so stupid, but I finally had to ask it. So it's basically you use the word network. We can look at it as network, right? It's all the people in your world that you've connected with who could potentially benefit from what you do. And your job at any given time as a business owner is to put yourself in front of as many people as you can all the time who can benefit from what you do and make connections with them, start conversations with them. And so that you are growing a network of people who are in different stages, right? And I'm not going to get too much into the nuances of that, but essentially you want to set up some different ways for people to move through your ecosystem, move through your world. Okay. Pipeline could also be thought of as what's your funnel, right? How are you funneling people into your world? And at any given point, what stage are they at? Because people are all now, soon, or later buyers. Everybody falls into one of those. I mean, for anybody who's new, if you just want to make those your 3 stages, go ahead. You've got now buyers, soon buyers, and later buyers, hot, warm, cold, however you want to look at it. It's not your business and it's not in your control when those people are going to make a decision to buy. What is in your control is how you show up to those engagements, how you show up to those conversations, how you show up to those interactions, and how you want to show up and feels truest to you is how you should. For me, and a lot of times that was, let me write a thank you note. Let me invite somebody out for coffee. Let me get a connection call so that I can help refer them to other people and support them in some way. And so are you controlling how you show up? Or are you just white knuckling the whole experience going, I hope this person says yes. I hope this person says yes. Your job is to get yourself in front of as many people who can benefit from what you do, start conversations with them, connect with them, and know that now, soon or later, wherever they fall, it's your job to stay in the game and stay in conversations. And I think sometimes people are so quick to want to make that first connection, like, ooh, we had a really great conversation and she needs what I have.
Yeah.
Like I was on a call 2 weeks ago. I had a connection call with a woman and it was a connection call. We're in a group together. And within 5 minutes of the conversation, I thought we were connecting and just genuinely chatting. And I shared some things with her about some new things I'm doing in my business. And she goes, oh, if that's what you're doing, you need me. Well, here's what happens when you say something like that to somebody. Let me tell you why I don't. Like, talk about creating friction, right? Like you need
I
me.
have seen that. I have seen that in networking events where there's a bunch of people.
Well, and I'm
And
thinking
somebody will say something and then somebody will pipe in. Super cringe.
I was like, did you even bother to ask if I want support with this? If maybe I already have support with this. Maybe I was just opening up, being vulnerable genuinely from a connection standpoint, because I thought that that's what we were there to do. And honestly, when she goes, you need me, I thought, no, you need me. Because if that's your approach to getting somebody into a conversation with you about what you might be able to do to help them, it's not working with me. And I can guarantee you it's not working with a lot of people. Now, I will say this, right? And she's a wonderful human being. And everybody who does something like that is still a great human being. What they probably don't realize is that's a turnoff to people. You're being an advice monster, but it comes from a beautiful place. I know it does, because at the end of the day, we all do want to help people. We just don't always know the right way to say it or the right way to approach it. And what a lot of people do is they're trying to get to the end of the game too fast. But here's the secret. When you slow it down, it speeds things up. Every time when you slow it down, it speeds things up. Now, her saying, you need me. And then she shared her screen and then she showed me what was confusing about my LinkedIn profile. And she showed me things that, like, you need this and you need that. And the whole time I'm sitting there going, how soon can we get off this call? Like, I literally am like, this is just so not what this was all about. Right.
Yeah.
Now, if she said, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like, what are you doing to work with that? You know, are you getting support with that? Not, I might've said, oh, not right now. If she had said, hey, why don't I send you my checklist for things you can do, blah, 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 blah. Right. Stay curious, ask some questions, and then offer. This is the give, ask, right? Offer some kind of value. Well, I can tell you right now, if she in that moment had served me, we probably would be having another conversation. Not because I'm looking for support with that right now, but that would have connected me to her. That would have let me know she cared, because she took the time to ask some questions, find out what was really going on for me, and not just jumped right into advice monster of, you need me. Because what that made me feel like is, wait, were we here to really connect, or were you here to just look for an opportunity? Because it felt slimy to me. It felt like I don't feel like we connected, and I don't feel like I want to stay in touch with you now, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right? Because how can I possibly open up to you again without having that fear of, like, well, I don't want to open up to her because she's going to tell me I need something. She's going to come so quick with advice that it's just, I don't want to do that. And listen, if we were to take it out of a sales conversation, we've all had that with a friend or a parent or somebody. Like, I know growing up, there were a lot of times that, and I love my parents and they're great, but I would go to them and I would say, like, a problem I would have. And instead of just talking about it, it was, well, you need to do this or you need to do that. I don't feel like I was heard. I don't feel like in that moment I was understood. I feel like what I said was just kind of like bypassed, and somebody said, you need to go do this. Well, that was a turnoff. That made me feel like, well, you don't get me. Let me tell you why I don't want to do that or why I don't need to do that. And that's where we get to in sales conversations. We create that friction. And so I just think it's really important to stay curious. It's probably the most important thing that we could ever do is to stay curious. That's how you show somebody that you care. And that is how you slow things down in order to speed it up. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in a actual sales conversation that was intentionally a sales conversation with somebody. And by the end, I said something along the lines of, I just think that this is maybe not the right time. And, or I didn't even offer something to them. And they said, wait, can I hear about your programs, or can I hear more about what you do or how I might be able to work with you? Now you're asking me, right? Now we're in a different conversation. So a lot of times when we aren't so quick to jump to that end, and again, I'm a sales coach. I'm not saying don't ask for the business when the time is right and you see the opportunity. But what I'm saying is a lot of times we are so quick to the ask. We are so quick to, I've got a goal. I've got to get a client. I've got to bring in revenue. Let me get the ask, right? I've got to have the courage to ask. Well, if you haven't stayed curious and built empathy and relatability for the other person, then the ask is pushy. The ask is salesy because you haven't taken the time to gather context, gather an understanding before you ask the question.
Makes sense. Ella has a comment if you want to read this out loud.
The difference is if you're attached to where the get comes from. Putting out the gives doesn't mean the get comes back directly. Exactly. So great. Hi, Ellie. Oh my gosh. I just saw who that was. Hey, girl. Yeah, that's exactly it. And we just can't be attached. Again, let's go back to the thank you notes. If you're writing thank you notes because of what you think it's going to do for you, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not the right strategy. And I'm using air quotes because it's not even a strategy at all. It's a genuine way for connection. It's another touch point, right? And in the world we live in today, it used to be like 8 to 10 touch points before a sale was made. And now I would say it's probably 3 times that because there's so much noise in the world. There's so much going on. And how do we cut through that? Well, number one, it's giving a shit about people and staying curious and building that rapport with them. And it's knowing what to say and showing up confidently without being attached to outcomes, but genuinely being attached to serving the other person.
Absolutely. Yeah. In our mastermind, like 2 weeks ago, Emily Tisani, who's our Instagram guru, was saying it's up to 30 now. 30 touches, she said.
Yeah. That's why I said 8 to 10. It's probably 3 times that now because there's just so much more noise. And automation is great. I'm not here to knock automation. It's awesome. It simplifies our lives in a lot of ways. It also creates a lot of opportunity for us to go back to the basics around what is business really about. It's about human to human connection. It's about relationships. And the easiest way to cut through that noise is to not be a part of it, but to truly be the human that has, and again, I use automation in my business. I'm not saying we can't use it, but how are you also above and beyond that, truly using human connection to move the needle in your business?
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. As we are wrapping up here, I know that you talk about magic phrases to get closer to a sale. Can you share with us some magic phrases?
If I do, how open-minded will you be about using them?
Oh, so open-minded.
Well, there were a few for you right there. Here's the thing about the magic phrases. They're magic because they speak to the subconscious part of the brain. And the subconscious part of the brain only has 2 outputs. It has yes or no. It makes decisions for us all day long. And so when we're able to speak to the part of the brain that's already in decision-making mode, that doesn't get stuck in maybe, then we're able to help people through the decision-making process. And that's really what we are as salespeople. We're professional mind maker-uppers. We're helping somebody move towards a decision that they do want to make. Somebody would not be in a conversation with you if they didn't want to make the decision, right? If they really didn't want the thing that you can help them with, They wouldn't give you their time because their time is the most expensive thing that they could ever pay you with.
Totally.
So if somebody's in a conversation with you and they're giving you their time and attention, please know that's a huge indicator right off the bat. That's a micro commitment. They're saying, on some level, I think this might be for me. So when we're able to talk to the subconscious part of their brain, we're able to help them move through that decision-making process, because change is hard. Nobody likes change. Nobody wants to do it. So it's not that they don't want to make the decision. They've already made the fucking decision if they're in the conversation with you. What they haven't been able to do is give themselves permission to make that decision. So these magic phrases are magic because they're speaking to the subconscious part of the brain. But here's the other thing. If the magic phrases just made somebody do what you wanted them to do, I'd go sell these things for $1 billion and call it a day. There's no perfect phrase that you can say every time that works every time, that gives you the automatic answer every single time. So the reason these magic phrases work, besides speaking to the subconscious brain, are the 3 pieces that I told you already that are so important in every conversation. These are 3 ingredients that you want to take to every conversation you're in, not just business conversations, not just sales conversations, personal conversations, conversations with anybody in your life that matters to you. And the 3 ingredients are curiosity, empathy, and courage. When you take the time to stay curious, and you take the time to build empathy through the context that you gain by being curious, you'll start to get to know that other person. You'll understand that other person. You'll be able to hit the show me that you know me button. That helps them feel like they can trust you, because they're saying, wow, she gets me. She knows me. She understands me. And once you've taken the time to stay curious and you've danced your way towards empathy, now you have the courage to ask some of those hard questions, because it's just the natural next step. And so this is where the magic phrases come in. The magic phrases quite often are questions. Many of them are questions, because the person in control of the conversation is always the person asking the questions.
Yeah.
Right? So when we come equipped, here's where a lot of people go wrong in sales conversations. They don't prepare. They don't put any time into it. They go with the hope, wish, and pray method. And they just hope, wish, and pray that they say the right things or do the right things, or that the other person's already there to just say yes. And we don't take the time to prepare questions. And so a lot of the magic phrases are questions. And we talked about this at the beginning, right? How do we get fear out of the way? How do we show up to conversations, and how do we ask questions without fear? Well, we don't. Fear is always going to be there. But what a lot of people do is then they don't ask the question. They don't get in the conversation at all. So what I'm going to give you right now is a phrase you can use that's rejection free, which helps people enter into those conversations. Because what is the fear usually? It's fear of rejection, right? A lot of times that's what's going on. And so here's a great phrase you can use to get yourself into any conversation and introduce anything to anybody at any time. I'm not sure if it's for you, but I'm hosting a free webinar tomorrow about how to close more deals in your sales conversations. Who do you know that could benefit from attending? So that I'm not sure if it's for you. I just gave you a specific example. You could use it in so many. I'm not sure if it's for you, but we're going to a new sushi restaurant on Friday night. Would you like to join us? I'm not sure if it's for you, but I just tried this new planner for 2024 and it's really helping me stay organized. Would you like me to show you how I use it? I don't care what it is that you want to introduce, but when you say, I'm not sure if it's for you, you're saying, I'm not sure if it's for you. So if it's not, I said it first, right? You can't reject me because I flat out said, I'm not sure if it's for you. But here's why it talks to the subconscious brain. In that moment, here's what their brain says. I'll tell you if it's for me. I'll make that decision. You don't get to decide what's best for me. I'll tell you if it is. So when you say, I'm not sure if it's for you, in that split second, their FOMO in their brain lights up and goes, well, tell me what it is. And that's why the word but is so important in that phrase. I'm not sure if it's for you, but. Because here's what a lot of people say. They're like, don't use the word but because it negates everything that came before it. You're damn right it does. And that's exactly what we want to do here. I'm not sure if it's for you, but I'm going to say it anyways. I'm not sure if it's for you, but I'm about to tell you about it, right? And when we say but, it actually gets the person interested in what's coming after the but. I'm not sure if it's for you, but, and now you've gotten them focused on the very thing you wanted them to focus on to begin with, whatever it is that you're looking to introduce to them. So I'm not sure if it's for you, but, and then fill in the blank with whatever it is that you're looking to introduce to the person, and they will be listening to that very thing. And here's the thing. Here's why it's rejection free. If they say, oh, yeah, no, that doesn't sound like something that I want to do right now. Okay. At the very least, they say, no, you're right. It's not.
So I have a question. So I do something similar, but I do it on the back end. And I'm wondering if maybe I should flip it. So I say, I'm going to probably totally butcher this, but I say, I'm going to send you my sales page usually I teach them something. So at the end of all of my networking calls, I always ask the same exact question. How can I help you?
Mhm.
Nobody ever knows how I can help them. And so I use it as a teaching tool. They usually stammer over something. They're like, blah, blah, blah. And I say, can I just give you some free advice? And then they're like, sure. And I go, okay. And I go through this whole little classroom 5-minute exercise on the importance of knowing questions or knowing what you need in your business so that when somebody asks you what you need, you can just spurt out something. It's important because we're all trying to grow our business.
Yep.
So then on the back end of that, they're always like, oh my gosh, that was brilliant. Thank you so much for teaching that to me. And I say, no problem. I hold a mastermind and networking for female entrepreneurs. And we learn stuff just like this, just real small. Took me 2 to 5 minutes to teach that to you. And look at the pivot, look at the turn that you've had. Right. So, and then I say, P.S., this was a sales pitch. Just so you know, all transparency. Like I always do a little joke because that's my sales pitch. And then I say, I'm going to send you my sales page, like all transparency. I'm going to send you the sales page for the mastermind. And then I say what you said, but I say it at the end, I say, take a look at it. If it's not for you, no harm, no foul.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it would be more beneficial to switch it in the beginning, or does it really not matter just as long as you're doing
how's it working for you?
I mean, I feel like my numbers are great, but
if your conversion is like, I was working with a client the other day and we were working through her sales process, and at her second meeting, she has a 70% conversion rate. I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like if you're getting 70% at your second meeting, great. I said, what's your third meeting? She said 20%. I said, there's the opportunity. Let's talk about why. Right. And so to me, if you're getting great numbers and you're happy with it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You could also play around with it. I mean, now that you're like, oh, there's this new piece of information, maybe you do flip it and see how it feels. Right. If you've been doing it that way for a certain period of time and it's working, cool. Maybe this could up level some things. So I don't think that if you're getting great results, that the way you're doing it is wrong.
You don't know if you're getting great results though, until you've gotten different results, right?
That's why I say play around with it and flip it, because if you're happy with what you've been doing, cool.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the phrase again? I want to write it down. What is it again?
I'm not sure if it's for you, but.
For those of you watching live, which we have a ton of people still on here after 52 minutes. Thank you.
You know what would be amazing is everybody to put an example of how they want to use that phrase in the comments, because I want to go through the comments and read these, and everybody right now has something that they want to introduce to somebody. And again, this does not have to be a sales conversation. Think of a place in your life right now that you want to start a conversation to introduce something to somebody, and put an example in the comments of how you're going to use that phrase. I'm not sure if it's for you, but I would love to read those examples.
That's great. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Compliment you, by the way, because what you just, first of all, that's amazing that you take people through that 5-minute exercise at the end, because that is something that I teach on as well. Yes, I'm a sales conversation coach, but that's a sales conversation, right? When you're in a connection call with somebody and at the end, it happens to me all the time, Sabrina. I ask people, how can I support you or be a resource for you? And they go, oh, I don't know. And here's what they say more often than not. If you know anybody who's looking for a client, send them my way. Yeah, because I'm going to deliver on that. Nobody's fucking delivering on that big ask.
They all say that. Yeah.
Why do we make it so hard when somebody says, how can I support you? Make it as easy as fucking possible for them to support you, and have something prepared. What I often say, this is what I do all the time. I'm looking to grow my list. How open-minded would you be about sharing depending on who I'm talking to, I have a couple different resources, about sharing this resource with 5 people you know could benefit from it. I don't even say sharing it to your list. Sometimes people want to send it to they're like, oh, I'll send it to my whole list. But like, listen, if you send it to 3 to 5 people, that still benefits me, and it benefits them, and it benefits you, because now you're gifting something that's valuable and great. And here's the thing. And I tell people, I'm like, it gives you a reason to reach out to some people.
Totally.
That's not on your, right? Like, you're not reaching out to say, hey, I need that. You're saying, hey, just met this woman. She's awesome. She helps people with sales conversations. I know you and I've chatted in the past, thought this might be beneficial for you, right? I'm not sure if it's for you, but maybe you could benefit from this. It's a free template.
Totally.
Make it as easy as possible for people to support you, but you're not, here's another cornerstone that I teach. The worst time to think about what you're going to say is the moment you're saying it. So don't show up to those conversations, and when somebody says, how can I support you? Go, you're not going to have anything. But if you plan ahead and you write down 5 different things that you can think of that are easy asks and that are easy for them to say yes, you're walking away from every one of those conversations successfully.
Exactly.
It just happened to me yesterday. I was on a call with a woman. I said, how can I help you? She said, if you know anybody who's looking for a client. I said, okay, I'll keep that in mind. Who's your ideal client? Da, 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 da. And then she said, how can I support you? I said, how open-minded would you be about sharing this with 5 people? And she goes, oh. And I know what happened in that moment. She was probably thinking, oh,
that
God,
was a good ask.
Yeah.
That happens to me. Yep.
No, I can do that. I said, what would be the best way for me to get you the link? I have something that, that's a script that I can send you that you can use to reach out, and I'll send you the link to it. And she goes, oh, yeah. Okay. Email would be great.
Yep.
When we show up, it helps us get an easy yes, which it just makes it easier on the other person and us. And it also makes us look professional in that moment, prepared in that moment. Like we showed up intentionally for that conversation, which is what we want to do.
Yeah.
That's a sales conversation.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. 100%. Okay. I'll put hers up. She said, oh, go ahead and read it. You can read it.
Oh, good. I'm not sure if it's for you, but I have a guide to help you nail your brand without even looking at a logo or a color palette. Do you know anyone who might? Yep. And Ellie, I would do this. Who do you know? Who do you know? Because here's what you don't want an answer to. And this is great because I know Ellie, so I can, pick on it a little bit, but this is great for everybody to hear. This is another magic phrase. Who do you know versus do you know? A lot of times we ask questions that give us the answers that we don't want. So how do we get better at asking questions that give us the answers?
Oh, so do you know is a yes or no?
Correct.
Versus who do you know is like a straight up.
Because who do you know? No, that's not an answer to who do you know? Who do you know? Yes, that's not an answer to who do you know? Who do you know? Now, at worst case scenario, you're going to go, I don't know anybody that, okay. They might say, I don't know anybody. They might say, let me think about that. And you can say, that's okay. I don't need their name right now, but who's one person that you're thinking of? This is an example of slowing it down to speeding it up. We get so focused on who do you know? Give me all the people. If they give you one name.
That's my whole thing. Yeah.
Give you one name. You're so much better off. And that one person might be waiting for you. They might not even know, and you might not even have known that one person needed to meet you. So when you get really specific and you say, here's the thing, when we guide people with specific questions and we ask better questions that give us the answers that we want, again, you're talking to their subconscious. You're able to help them make decisions faster. If you say, do you know anybody? No, I don't. If you say, who do you know? What do? They start thinking. And you say, I don't need their info right now. That's okay. But who are you thinking of? Well, I think my friend Jessica could use it. Oh, okay, cool. Well, listen, when's the next time you're going to talk to Jessica? I usually see her on Fridays and we get together for coffee. Okay. How open-minded would you be about letting Jessica know about, our connection and our talk and asking if she'd be open to checking out the template? Yeah, I could do that. Now, not only have you gotten a name, you didn't even gather any of the information, but you coached them through how to bring you up to this other person. You've increased the likelihood by so much that is a connection that's actually going to be made.
Yeah.
The power of specificity. The power.
I was just talking about this on our last networking call, as far as when we're in the big room at the very end and we're going around, because we always do breakout sessions everywhere, but at the very end we do the round table, and people do raw just like that. Like, I'm looking for anyone who's overwhelmed. Like, we're all motherfucking overwhelmed. Like, you want my whole fucking list, like including myself?
Yeah.
So what we were talking about on the networking call is exactly that. Like, it is our responsibility as a business person to be constantly going to networking calls, to be constantly on networking one-on-ones. It is not the whole one event's responsibility to every single one of them give you somebody. What is our responsibility is to show up and ask for a very, very specific ask, so that 2 people out of all those people will give you a specific person, one specific person.
Yep.
And so exactly to that point, so I think so many times we want everybody to be involved. We want a connection from nobody. Everyone is not going to give you a connection. I'm sorry. Nope. Nobody cares that much. Nope. Most people are there just for themselves. But if you get the right person and you say that one thing, like somebody was actually funny in this last, when I said that, And she goes, I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was something like, I am looking for somebody who smokes cigarettes and drinks bourbon. Something like that. And immediately, so many faces lit up. It was crazy. There was like 5 people who smiled so big. And I mentioned it. And I said, out of those 5 people, 2 people are going to get you a connection for sure. Because it was so freaking specific versus I help anyone who's overwhelmed.
Casting this wide net. I
Yeah.
help people who are overwhelmed and need to get rid of their perfectionism. Everybody on the fucking planet.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, it's so funny because and like I get it in a lot of ways because there you go, Ellie. Who do you know who could benefit from that? Yep, exactly. Unless you start really getting intentional about it and thinking about it, it comes from a good place. It's like, oh, this person has a community. Who do you know in your community? Right? Well, let's just get more refined and polished here and help somebody actually give us what we are looking for, which is
Elle was there. I forgot she was there at the networking call. That was the ask. It was 1 syllable name and drinks beer or bourbon. She helps dad own businesses.
I love it.
So like Ed
Yeah.
drinks beer.
Yeah.
That's freaking good.
That's so good.
Literally so many people like smiled so big.
Yep.
Because one person popped up in their head.
Yep.
They
I
knew
love that. The
exactly.
1 syllable name. Yep.
Yeah.
Or who do you know whose name starts with an N, who blah, blah, blah. You know, like just have fun with it and play around with it. Because at the end of the day, if you have a connection call with somebody or a networking opportunity and you get 1 name.
Yeah.
And you are able to connect with that one person and it turns out to change their life. Wasn't that worth it? Wasn't that the whole point? Versus let me just cast this wide net to like 50 generic people. Well, the power of thinking of that one name is that person genuinely probably has a reason for them to want to connect to you.
Absolutely.
Versus all the random people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic. I love it. This was unbelievable. I so appreciate you being here, hanging out with us.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes, 100%. How can people contact you? Who should be contacting you? All the things.
Well, if you know anybody who's looking for our sales, I'm just kidding. Is that my time? Is that what I say? Yeah, please reach out to me. So I did briefly say a couple different times something about a template. It's a discovery call template. And for anybody who's looking to improve their sales calls, I have a free gift for you. Please reach out to me on Instagram at the Nicole Cramer and just DM me and say discovery call template, or say, I saw you with Sabrina and I want to know how to have better sales calls. I'll be happy to send it to you. A lot of people don't approach their calls with any kind of structure or any kind of plan. And I found that this alone will get people off on a better start with their sales conversation. So I would love to hear from you. Send me a video in the DMs. I love getting videos from people. Introduce yourself to me. I'll send one back and give you some free gifts to help you get better at sales.
Okay. So your Insta is the Nicole Cramer.
Mm-hmm.
Like this?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So find Nicole on Instagram, shoot her a DM and get your free. That sounds amazing. I might even do that myself, girl.
Do it, girl. Do it.
This was absolutely amazing. For those of you listening live, thank you for being here and hanging out with us till the very end. Any closing thoughts, Nicole, as we wrap up here?
You know, I think if anything else, I mentioned it a couple times, just work more on staying curious in every area of your life. That would be my closing thought. Just given the topic that we were talking about, right? I could come up with a lot of closing thoughts about a lot of things, but based on the fact that we were talking about conversations and how to arrive with more impact and influence in your conversations, stay curious. It's how you show somebody else that you care, and it will create so much more impact between you and that other person than coming with certainty and answers. So work on staying curious. And it's a lot harder than you think. We as adults tend to become advice monsters. And again, it comes from a good place. We're genuinely looking to help people, but staying curious just is this beautiful energy to show up in that creates such different results from your connection with people.
Yeah. I've definitely learned that from the mastermind. That's helped me a lot because you give the reins to so many other people. And I sip instead of being the first one to raise the hand, right? Like, oh, I don't know the answers. I'm the lead here.
Yeah.
A lot of times I don't even ever say anything.
Yeah.
You know, I just sit back and let everyone else just stay curious. And I learn stuff all the time too, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Well, this has been absolutely great, Nicole. I so appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us, share some goodness with us. For those of you listening live or on the replay, make sure you find her on Instagram, The Nicole Cramer. Her website is just as simple, thenicolecramer.com. It is in a clickable link in the description wherever you are watching us at. To our dedicated listeners, thank you for being here. Follow, like, and share. And as always, I am your host here. It's Sabrina Victoria. Follow us. Our group is Her Nation. We continue to have uplifting, amazing conversations just like this in order to help you in your life and in your business.